Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to Mets Central's Mets Fan Reaction Game 131, where the New York Mets lose a heartbreaking game to the San Diego Padres by a score of 3-2, and they were unable to win this series, and instead they settle for a series split. Before we get into the actual post-game recap, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe on the channel. We greatly appreciate you guys' support on the channel, and we want to keep feeding you guys content throughout the rest of the regular season. Also, make sure to turn on post notifications as well to let you know anytime we upload a video or go live on the channel. But yeah, getting into this game, man, like it's tough right now. Like I'm recording this about an hour after the game ended, and I'm still not feeling any better because listen, I'm not gonna poke around the bush. I'm just gonna give it straight to you guys. Like this is a horrible loss, and I know like every time the Mets have a horrible loss, we come on here, whether it's this channel, other Mets fan channels, or whether you listen on WFAN, and the hosts say, this is probably the worst loss this season. We usually say that after every bad loss, but this this one is probably the worst loss of the regular season because I mean, you just look at the circumstances, right? Earlier today, the Braves lose to the Nationals. So if the Mets would have won this game, they would have had a chance to make up a game on the Braves. Also, the fact that the Mets took the first two out of the three games of the series. And listen, I said before on the other post game recaps I did of the series, I said before going to this Padres series, I would have took a split. And if you would have told me that, you know, sh- shake your hand, you get a guaranteed split, I would have took that all day and I would have been happy because it's again the Mets. They're still chasing the Braves. You go up against a very hot San Diego Padres team, so I would have been fine with a split. But considering the fact how it went down and how they lost this game, it's like I'm not happy with the split. Like I'm not because they should have won this game and they should have won this series 3-1. And considering the fact and this was such a reason why last night's win was such a big win. You had David Peterson on the mound, he pitched very well, and you win game 3. And one of the reasons why it was so big because you look ahead going to the next game and you saw Jose Quintana was on the mound. And we've seen Quintana in his last few starts. They have not been good, and he has put the Mets behind early in games and hasn't allowed them to come back and win those games. However, you got to give major credit, and I got to give major credit to Jose Quintana because this is a guy that I was saying I don't want him, pitching for the Mets anymore. Do I still want him on the roster? No, not really. But you know what? I have to be the bigger man here, and I gotta admit when I'm wrong. And I gotta say credit to Jose Quintana because he pitched very well today. He did. I mean, you take a look at the final line score: 6 and a third innings pitched, 4 hits, no runs given up, 2 walks, which again is big because control is a big issue that Quintana has. So 2 walks, 0 strikeouts, which is really impressive considering that he went 6 and a third inning and he didn't strike out anybody. But hey, it is what it is. And obviously, give up no home runs, and it lowered his season ERA down to 4.36. So you cannot blame this game on Jose Quintana, but there's plenty of other blame to go around with this game, starting with the offense. Now, look, I know people will say like, especially if you don't watch the games and you just look at the box score and you say, oh, but the Mets in the first game they scored 7 runs, and last night they scored 7 runs. But when you really look at it and you break down the series, the offense has not been that great for the Mets. Like they only have 2 runs today, which was courtesy off 2 solo shots by JD Martinez and Mark Vientos. In the second game of the series, they got completely shut down by Joe Musgrove. They couldn't touch him. And then, yes, while they scored 7 runs in the first and third game, you look at yesterday's game, and 5 of the runs drove in were by Francisco Lindor. And in the first game, they had the big ninth inning. And the reason why they had the big ninth inning is because for some reason Mike Schilt decided to go to one of their one of their not better relievers, and I believe what was his name? Give me a second. I forgot the name of the guy, but he didn't go. He didn't use one of their better relievers there. So and then credit to the Mets there because you know what, you have to take advantage of lesser pitching. They did, and they had a big ninth, a top of the ninth inning. But the offense this series was not good, and a big reason why they were able to get a split and why they should have won the series. Sorry, is because the starting pitching was excellent today, but the offense was one reason why the Mets blew this game, and the second reason was your bullpen guys who you trust and who you rely on, they did not come through. Jose Budo, he was not good, and he gave up the game tying home run to Jurickson Profar, and then obviously Edwin Diaz, who listen, I don't want to get on guys like Budo and guys like and Diaz because they have been very good this year. They have been the two best relievers in the season so far, aside from Deadnell Nunez. But it's just it's tough when you lose a game like this because obviously Budo gives up the home run to Profar, and then Diaz just throws a horrible slider to Jackson Merrill, and he tanks it off him to right field to walk off the game. But yeah, I mean, let's get into the actual post game recap now. So on the mound for the Mets, like I mentioned before, it was Jose Quintana, and on the mound for the San Diego Padres, it was Michael Perez. So getting into the game, Francisco Lindor would lead off for the Mets as he would hit a single into left field. Mark Fields would then fly out. Pete Alonso would then fly out, and Brandon Nimmo ground out to end the inning. Then bottom of the first, Jurickson Profar leading off for the Padres. He'd hit a single. Then Donovan Solano would hit into a force out, and then Jose Quintana would get Alexander Bogaerts to ground to an inning ending double play. Sorry. Top of the second, Starling Marte would ground out. JD Martinez would then hit a single. Jose Iglesias would hit into a force out, and Luis Torrens would strike out to end the inning. Then bottom of the second, Manny Machado would hit a double into center field. Jay Cronenworth would ground out. Jackson Merrill would ground out, and Luis Campusano would pop out to end the inning. Top of the third, Harrison Bader flies out to left field. Francisco Lindor would then ground out to third base. Mark Fiennes would hit a single, and Pete Alonso would ground out to end the inning. So once again, Mets couldn't get anything going that inning. Bottom of the third, quick 1-2-3 inning for Jose Quintana. He'd get Bryce Johnson to ground out. Mason McCoy would fly out, and Jurickson Profar would ground out to end the inning. Top of the fourth, Brandon Nimmo would line out. Starling Marte would ground out. JD Martinez, who has picked up his game recently, he hits another home run, and he had a pretty good game today too. So he hits a home run, he hits into center field, it puts the Mets up 1-0. Then this is where the Mets really failed to capitalize here. So you have two outs. JD Martinez obviously hits the solo home run to put you up. Then Perez loses the strike zone, and he walks three straight guys. He loses Iglesias. He walks him. Iglesias would steal second. He then walk Luis Torrens, and then he would walk Harrison Bader to load up the bases with two outs. Mike Shildt makes the pitching change as Brian Hoeing would come in to replace Martin Perez, and I don't want to get on Francisco Lindor right here because he's been so good recently. He's been so good, and he has easily been this team's MVP. But you gotta drive in a run here or two, Francisco, and he strikes out the end inning. So Mets strand three guys on base right there. Bottom of the fourth, Donovan Solano would line out. Alexander Bogaerts would fly out. Manny Machado would walk, and then Jay Cronenworth would ground out to end the inning. Top of the fifth, another area where the Mets missed out here. Mark Fiennes would strike out. Pete Alonso would single. Brandon Nimmo would single. So first and second for the Mets with one out. Mets, though, couldn't bring him in as Starling Marte. He strikes out, and JD Martinez strikes out the end of the inning. Then bottom of the fifth, another 1-2-3 inning, 1-2-3 easy inning for Jose Quintana. He get Jackson Merrill ground out. Luis Campusano would ground out, and Bryce Johnson would ground out the end of the inning. Then top of the fifth, Jeremiah Estrada would come in to replace Brian Hoeing, and a quick, easy 1-2-3 inning for him as he would get Jose Iglesias strike out. Luis Torrens would fly out to center field, and Harrison Bader would strike out to end the inning. Then bottom of the sixth, Mason McCoy would single. Jurickson Profar, would hit into a force out. Donovan Solano would pop out. Alexander Bogaerts would ground into a force out to end the inning. So six very good innings for Jose Quintana right here. We go to the top of the seventh. Jason Adam comes in to replace Jeremiah Estrada as Francisco Lindor would pop out. Mark Vientos would then would hit another home run into center field to put the Mets up 2-0. So big insurance run right there for Vientos as he keeps on hitting. Pete Alonso would strike out, and Brandon Nimmo would then ground out the inning. Now, here is one of the decisions that I really questioned and I questioned Mendy on because Jose Quintana, he finished the sixth inning, right? And before he got the out on Alexander Bogaerts, right, they showed Jose Budo warming up just in case Bogaerts got on, and he would have came in to face Manny Machado. So obviously Quintana gets Bogaerts out the inning, right? But the bottom of the seventh, with Machado coming up, Mendy allows Jose Quintana to go out there to start the inning. Now, here's my thinking on this. And for me personally, I would have pulled Quintana right there, and I would have let Budo start the seventh inning. because you got to remember the fact, like, even though he pitched 6 really good innings, you're sitting there wondering, okay, Quintana's giving me 6 here, but I really trust him to go even further. And he was already at 86 pitches, so it's not like he was at 70 something pitches. He already had a decently high pitch count. So for me, I would have. For me personally, like I said, I would have put in Budo right there and sat Quintana and just said, "Listen, Jose, good job, but we got to let the bullpen come in here and take over now." Thankfully, though, it didn't bite him in the ass. It worked out because Machado would hit a single, Jay Cronenworth would fly out, Jackson Merrill would then walk. So first and second for the Padres with 1 out. Mendy then goes to replace Quintana and he brings in Jose Budo. Then the Padres make a pitching change as Luis Ariz would come in. Luis Ariz would then fly out, so 2 outs. Then another pinch hitter as David Peralta will come in to replace Bryce Johnson. And then a really fortunate out here for the Mets as Budo throws the pitch to Torrens. Jackson Merrill goes to try and steal second base. Torrens throws it over to Lindor, who's trying to catch him out to get the steal. Jackson Merrill slides off the bag. Lindor holds the tag on him, so he's out. That ends the inning. So fortunate right there for the Mets. Then moving on to the top of the eighth, Kyle Higashioka comes in to play catcher. David Peralta remains in the game, and then Tanner Scott comes in to replace Jason Adam. Marte would line out, JD Martinez would strike out, and Jose Iglesias would strike out at the end of the inning. Bottom of the eighth, Tyrone Taylor would come in to replace Starling Marte in right field. So Budo's still here for the for the bottom of the eighth, and this is where it starts to fall apart because he gets David Peralta to ground out, and he kind of got fortunate because he fell behind. Let's look at the count because he fell behind him on 3-1. He fell behind. Oh, sorry, 3-0. He fell behind on David Peralta, and he was able to fight back, able to ground them out, and then here's the killer. And the Mets, for some reason, they were doing this all series, right? Because what's the one rule that applies for starting pitchers and relief pitchers or closing pitchers, whatever pitcher you want to throw out there? What's the one rule that applies? You don't walk the 9-hole hitter. And that guy's Mason McCoy. And the Mets have done this multiple times this series. This wasn't the first time. So he walks here, but if you recall back in the first game, Sevy walked him 2 times. He's gotten multiple hits this series. So Mason McCoy has just been a thorn in the Mets side this whole series. But like I said, you don't walk the 9-hole hitter. It always comes back to bite you in the ass. And that's what happened. Because on the next at bat, Jerickson Profar comes up and he hits a deep fly ball for a home run into right field to tie the game at 2-2. And right there, I was like, yep, here we go. Here we go. This is setting up to be just a horrible, catastrophic loss for the Mets. But anyway, after that, Donovan Solano would strike out. Xander Bogaerts would hit a single. Phil Maton comes in to replace Jose Budo, and he would get Manny Machado ground out. Top of the ninth, Robert Suarez comes in to replace Tanner Scott. Jesse Winker will come in to pinch hit for Luis Torrens. So the Mets need to respond here. They didn't, though, as Jesse Winker would ground out, Harrison Bader would ground out, and Francisco Lindor to strike out the inning. Then the defensive substitution, Francisco Alvarez comes in to play catcher, and Edwin Diaz comes in to replace Phil Maton to pitch the ninth inning. He gets Jay Cronenworth to strike out to get the first out, and then just leaves a horrible slider over the plate, and Jackson Merrill just tanks it off him to end the game with a walk-off home run. And that ended just a terrible loss right there. But I mean, look, even though it was a terrible loss, right? Like I'll just leave it right here. Like the season for me is not over. They are still in this. But this is a type of loss that can really hurt the morale of the team and can bring down the morale of the team. The Mets now have to respond. Because, like, even though, like I said, I would have taken a series split before the series happened. And look, I'm still happy that they got a split. But because they were so close in terms of winning, since they were so close in terms of almost winning the series, I'm like, that's disappointing. And it is. It's very disappointing. But now look, you got the rest of the road trip, right? You got 6 games. You got 3 in Arizona, and you got 3 against the White Sox in Chicago. It's essential that the Mets, for the next 6 games, they go 5-1. They need to win the series against Arizona, and they need to sweep the Chicago White Sox. They have to go 5-1. Anything less than that is not good enough. It's not good enough. Now look, if they won the series and you're like, okay, they lose to Diamondbacks, so it would have been like, and sorry, and they lost the series to Diamondbacks, so it would have been like, okay, fine. But I would have accepted it just because they won that Padres series, but because they didn't, they got to go 5-1. Win win the Diamondback series, sweep the White Sox series, and we'll go from there. So yeah, listen, that's gonna be it for the post game, you guys. Me and Evan expect a post game later tonight. You know, we'll have a depression podcast breaking down the series and this game specifically. But yeah, that's it for the post game recap. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said before the start, leave a like and subscribe. Also turn on post notifications as well to let you know anytime we upload a video or go live on the channel. But yeah, that's it. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. See you guys later. Peace out, Mets. Peace out, guys. Let's go, Mets, baby.